Hi, guys, and welcome to the Season 3 premiere of PTV FC. We have a very special episode for you guys tonight. I am Graham Marshman here with my usual co-host, Louie Pasculli, but that's not all. For the very first time in a very long time, since we had these guys on last season, we are bringing back two legends, the two people who laid the groundwork to help us build what we have for you, ladies and gentlemen, on a week-to-week basis. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you two of the founders of PTV FC, Ryan Johnston and Jimmy Bliss. Now, with that out of the way, guys, how are we doing today?
Doing well, Graham. Thanks for all the kind words. Excited to talk sports with you guys.
Louis, you want to tell us how you're doing today?
I thought we were gonna go with Ryan Johnston, but I'm doing great. I mean, we're back. I'm in my jersey. We have some nice jerseys in the crowd here as well. So we're back, ready to be talking. There we go. There we go. Ready to be talking some footy. We've been away for a little bit. We had a bit of a break towards the end of the summer and then into the start of the school year, but we are back. And who better to be back with than the two guys who have started the podcast with me? It's great to see you, boys.
Yeah, it's great to be back. It's great to see Jimmy. I see Louie all the time, but it's great to see Jimmy again. I'm ready to talk some football. Let's get into it.
All right. Ryan's ready to get into it. We're going to get into it. All right. The Premier League season is in full swing, and we are only 4 games into this season, and it's much too early to tell, exactly who's going to finish where. But I think we're going to have to start off with who's going to finish in the top 5 this season with the new changes to the Champions League, with it being a point system. There are 5 spots available for the Premier League since it is considered a higher leveled league than other leagues. So we're going to get into top 5 predictions. And who would like to start with their top 5 prediction?
Since I'm unmuted, I will go first. Sorry, Jimmy. I know we said that you'd go first, but I was already unmuted. So, number one, fairly easy. I feel like we all have the same answer here. It has to be Manchester City. They have the best goal scorer in the entirety of the world, named Erling Haaland. Plus, they have a man who can feed him as many assists as possible in Kevin De Bruyne. Not much has changed from last year. I think with Pep and the squad, it really, I feel like they're the betting favorite to finish first, and they're certainly the favorite for me. So I'll stick with Man City at number one. Now, number two is tough. I think, sorry, Jimmy, I'm going to go Arsenal. I like the moves that they made in the offseason. I love David De Gea, but I think that was Manchester City. I'm sorry. I got confused. Arsenal got rid of Matt Turner, which I don't think is too big of a loss. I don't think it will affect them back as the goalkeeper position. Plus, they ended up getting Declan Rice, which is a huge, huge transfer. I personally love that player, and I think he's going to be really, really good. So I'll have Arsenal at 2. Then at 3, we have Jimmy's Manchester United. I think that they had a pretty good run last year. I think that they have enough firepower in the squad to get up into that top 3 position. Then at 4, I'm going to put Liverpool. I know some people might not like that, but I think Liverpool, again, will be 4. And then number 5, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't over-predict how well West Ham is going to do. So for the reason that they're currently 4th in the table, let's go with West Ham. Mikel Antonio off to a decent start, scoring 2 goals in 4 games. Let him cook. Even though they had lost Declan Rice, they had a pretty good start to the season. I thought that we might see a hole in the midfield develop there, but they really haven't shown that just yet anyway. So why not get high on West Ham yet again to start off the new season of PTV FC?
All right, I'll go next. And myself and Louie actually have 4 of the same of the top 5, just all in a little bit of a different order. I'm going to start off with Manchester City because, of course, they should be favored to win after winning the treble and just looking fantastic all year. Although I'm not as high on them as Louis is, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win this year because I feel like they've looked a little bit vulnerable without De Bruyne and Gundogan in the midfield. Having Kovacic is solid, but he's not Gundogan. And then you can't replace Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, there's no one in the world that can play the type of passes that he does on a day-to-day basis. But still, I think until someone knocks them off, they have to be the favorites to win the Premier League. And second, potentially surprisingly, I have Liverpool. As much as I dislike them, they are just a fantastic team. I mean, Mohamed Salah is arguably the best player in the Premier League. He scored 19-plus goals every season in the Premier League each of the last 6 years. And I don't see that stopping. Of course, the midfield will probably take some time to gel, but Alexis McAllister is fantastic. Dominic Szoboszlai as well. And Curtis Jones, I think the trio will be very good, especially in Klopp's high tempo system. And then in third, I got Ryan's Arsenal. I'm not going to lie. Again, I don't have any soft spot for Arsenal, but they have had a fantastic summer. I think Declan Rice is a fantastic addition, potentially a little bit overpriced, but it doesn't matter. They got him in the squad, and he's looked very good so far. I'm interested to see how they're going to use Kai Havertz moving forward, though, because they just kind of shoehorned him into the midfield, and he's not necessarily a good midfielder per se. He's best suited as a center forward right behind the striker, and they've just been playing in the midfield, leaving some holes in behind where he is occupying. So if Mikel Antonio can get that, sorry, not Mikel Antonio, Mikel and Arteta can get that sorted out, I think Arsenal will be up and running. They'll take a slight step back, but I still do think that they're going to be in the running for the Premier League. And then my beloved Manchester United, I have coming in fourth, potentially a little bit low, but I'm not too high on them after the way that they started the season. The defense, which is typically the strong suit of Manchester United, has been lacking a little bit. Lisandro Martinez already got injured. Rafael Varane picked up a knock as well. Looks like they're going to be okay for the next few games, but it's only a matter of time before Varane gets injured again, as he's shown in his Manchester United career. He can't stay on the field too often. The right winger spot is in shambles right now, with Antony getting suspended, with Mason Greenwood being out of the club, Jadon Sancho thinking he's a prima donna and calling out Eric Ten Hag. I don't know what's going to go on there. They'll probably give the spot to a kid and have him take it as his own, but maybe a little bit too premature there for someone like Palestri or Amad Diallo to make that spot their own. Then in fifth, I'm going to go with Newcastle. I mean, they've just spent their money so wisely. They've looked really, really good so far to start the season. And they have a really good squad from top to bottom. Seems like they're 2 or 3 deep in every single position. I wouldn't be surprised if they finished fourth or potentially third, just behind Liverpool and Manchester City.
Yeah, Louis' take about West Ham was just ridiculous. So I think that we should completely disregard that in general.
Them cooked. Nobody thought that they were going to play Champions League football 2-3 years ago. So why can't they do it again, Ryan Johnston?
They almost got relegated.
They beat Luton Town.
So did Chelsea. Chelsea almost got relegated too.
Football.
We finished middle of the table.
There was a long period of time.
Anyways, moving past that nonsense, I see the Premier League as a 2-horse race. Really, I think it's Arsenal and Man City. You can call me biased, but I think we've got a much better shot than you guys are giving us credit for. You've talked about the signings. I mean, we're deep. Arsenal is deep this year, and I think that we can. I shouldn't say we. I'm not on the team. I think Arsenal can go the distance. And Man City, yeah, they're the betting favorites for a reason. And I still think that Arsenal's going to win it. Come on, the Gunners. I'm putting Arsenal at 1. I'm putting Man City at 2. I think Man United 3 and Liverpool 4. I see the surprise face there, Jimmy. We beat them Arsenal beat them in the Community Shield, and I know you're saying it's the Community Shield. Hey, it's a sign of things to come right there. It's a sign of things to come.
I mean, I respect your backing of your team, but we saw what happened last year when Man City and Arsenal played, and it wasn't too pretty for Arsenal.
That's a different year. New year, new team, new energy around the club. So Arsenal number 1, and Man City 2, and Man U 3, and Liverpool 4. And I'm not Liverpool. Is not Liverpool. Newcastle United hasn't really looked too great, to be honest, to start the season. 1 win, 3 losses. Struggled against the 2 top teams that they've played. Also lost against Brighton. Brighton's not exactly a team that you should be losing to if you want to be top 5 caliber. So I'm going to go with Tottenham. Obviously I don't like them very much, but they're a solid squad. They've shown that they can get results in the past. I know Harry Kane has left, but I think Tottenham has a chance of making top 5.
All right, so you're going to all be very surprised by what I have to say on who I think is going to win the Premier League. And in probably not the way you're expecting, my number one pick is Arsenal. I know that's Ryan, put your hand down. I'm ashamed to even say it myself, but I'm going with Arsenal here. But there's a couple reasons why. So last time we talked about this when we did these predictions, the first episode of season 2, I talked about the reason why Arsenal wasn't going to win, and that was because of their squad depth. And what led them to losing? It looked like it was a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of holes here and there in the squad. And I think they totally revamped their team with these new signings. Bringing in Declan Rice, that's an amazing signing. For any club to have gotten him, I think he would fit in perfectly with any system, let alone an Arsenal system that, already had Thomas Partey, but he's better than Thomas Partey. He's Declan Rice. Everyone knows that he's Premier League proven and that he's going to be one of the best signings that you can possibly get in that center defensive mid role. And then I don't necessarily think the signing of Kai Havertz was a good thing. You'll come to understand, Johnston, I was a Chelsea fan. I stood by him to the death. And you will come to understand eventually that you keep standing by him, and then you kind of just realize he doesn't really do anything. He'll have good games here and there, but then you kind of sit there and think to yourself, okay, he hasn't really done much. And, he'll have those stretch of 2 or 3 games where he'll be in fantastic form, but then he will just be kind of non-existent. And I think his presence isn't felt on the field as much as, you would want from a German superstar kid that he was when he came out of Leverkusen. But I'm definitely going to go with Arsenal at first place. I think Nketiah has really come into his own this year into the Premier League, and that's a great backup to Gabriel Jesus. And you have the squad depth now. You have the manager. The team is hungry. They're going to want to get it back after last year's little bit of a depressing end of the story. So I'm definitely going with Arsenal at 1. I have City at 2 for the reasons I'm putting City at 2. Do I really even need to say them? I think Louis covered it pretty good with his star boy wearing the Borussia Dortmund jersey over there. Then I'm going to go with Newcastle at 3. I think Newcastle has brilliantly run business this year, signing the likes of Almiron, Nick Pope. Eddie Howe has just been able to perfectly, change this team. I think he's the perfect guy to come into this club as a long-term manager to, get that long-term success that clearly this new form Newcastle with the new ownership is looking for. And then you have Alexander Isak, who I think is a future Premier League star, in my opinion. The kid is just amazing. You really saw him come into his own at the end of last season, and I'm just really excited to see things from the young Swedish lad. And then number 4, I have Chelsea. Hear me out. This is a brand new team. This team is a brand new team, and if we can stay healthy, one of our biggest problems last year was injuries and the fact that there was just a lack of spirit and desire to win anything in that team. And what did we do? We shipped them all out. We got rid of a majority of our team. We got rid of all of those high wages. So now we have a brand new team. Yes, they're all under the age of 21, but at least they're getting first team Premier League experience. So
not even forced. 2 words. Not even forced.
Okay. It was a bad game. We have a brand new manager, a brand new set of players. Once come January and December and when the games are coming thick and fast, if we're still in 12th place, then I'm going to start to worry. Then there's a problem that needs to be addressed. But I think the fact that it's a brand new team, brand new manager, brand new system, brand new way of doing business for the Chelsea Football Club, I think that we really just need to take our time and look at this team and just give them time to see what they actually can do. All of our players are very, very young. And I really think that a lot of them can come into our own, especially like Malo Gusto, who's come in to fill Reece James's spot after his injury. He got 2 assists in the first game he started. So just players like that. And I'm really hoping that we can make a run. And then for 5th place for our top 5 predictions, I have Man United. I don't think that Man United is, the team that they used to be. I think that there's a bigger problem at the club, kind of like with Chelsea, that they need to address, where they're only finishing in those 3rd and 4th places every year without really being contenders for the Premier League, kind of like how Chelsea's been before we kind of had our great downfall last season. So I think that Man United has some issues to address, but they're still a great club. There's still a lot of talent there, and I definitely think 5th place is a suitable place for them. Now, that is going to wrap it up for all of our predictions for the top 5 this year. And I did a little thing where I went back to our last video and I rewatched it and I took all of our predictions from this year and wrote them down and scored them on, who had the best predictions and who had the worst predictions. Now, the way I did it was kind of like the golf system. If you were one place off, so say Ryan Johnston put Arsenal at first last year, and that was one place off from second, so that's +1. So I did that and added up all of our scores. And would you guys like to hear the results for who had the best Premier League predictions last year? So in fourth place, we have, with a score of +12, 12 spots off of the correct table of the Premier League, was Ryan Johnston. Ryan Johnston with last place. Ryan Johnston with last place. Now, for first,
Not
second,
a ball,
and third.
Wait,
not a ball knower.
Who did I put? Who did I put?
So your first place was Arsenal. Your second place was City. Your third place was Chelsea. And your fourth place was Man United.
That's not that bad. All right.
It's really not.
It's not that bad.
The only reason we are all in double digits, by the way, is because Chelsea was a very high plus for everyone.
Right. If we're
no
all
matter where you put them.
If we're all in double digits, I'm taking it. That's fine. I can live with that.
Now, for second or third place, we have a tie. All of us got +10 after that, every single one of us. So what I did was I took
first round. That means Ryan Johnston finished in second.
Well, no, because what I did was I took who got the places correct. So who had the right teams in the right places in the top 4 most correct. So with second place is, or third place, I'll go third place first. Third place is Jimmy. You got third place. You had City at first place, Man United in second place, Arsenal in third place, and Chelsea in fourth place. And you did get the points for City. That's it for the tiebreaker.
All right, I'll take it. I'm still better than Ryan, so that's
okay. But the winner of last year's Premier League predictions is me. I know it's kind of anticlimactic because I did win, but I did have
it's rigged.
It was not rigged. I went back and watched the footage, Louie. And the reason I won was because I made a very smart decision and I put Newcastle at fourth last year. I don't remember doing that myself, but then I went and looked back and I had Newcastle at fourth. So, Louis, you did have City and Arsenal guessed correctly, and you had Man United guessed correctly in that fourth place spot. So those were all of your correct answers. That's how you ended up winning. And then I had City correct, and I had – or no, you didn't have Man United correct. I'm sorry. Man United finished third. Sorry, Jimmy. I didn't mean to offend you there. But then I had City and then Man United and Newcastle in their right spots. Because remember, Ryan Johnston, you were so offended that I said Arsenal wouldn't make the top 4, in case you remember that correctly. So that is, we do have our winners this year for, the Premier League predictions. Maybe next year we'll all come back. And then again, I will be the only one who will still be attending Seton Hall University. So it'd just be an alumni show at that point. But I guess that's a great way to wrap up, our top 4 and top 5 predictions. So moving on, we're going to be moving on to, we just talked about who finished the best. We're going to talk about who's going to finish last. We have our relegation battle, the bottom 3 teams. Jimmy, you want to start us off on who we think is going to get relegated this season?
Yeah, I'd love to, Graham. So the first team I think that's going to get relegated, and I do have a soft spot for them, is Wolves. Now, Wolves, in my opinion, they lost their top 3 players and absolutely did not replace them. Ruben Neves, I think, is a world-class midfielder and went to Saudi Arabia, did not find a replacement. Then they sent Mateus Nunes to Manchester City, one of their direct rivals, did not get a replacement. Raul Jimenez as well, their only goal scorer, they did not replace him. So what are they left with? Bunch of mid-table to championship level players. And Julian Lopetegui left the club because he was so frustrated with the management. They didn't give him any money to spend. They sold all of his players and they said, all right, you figure it out. And he said, screw that. I'm not trying to figure this out. You guys figure it out yourself. So he went off and left. He's a good manager, and I know he's going to go do good things, but if he can't figure it out, I'm not sure how many different managers are going to be able to figure it out. In 19th, I'm going to go with Luton. I mean, Luton's a good story, but realistically, I don't really see them staying up. They didn't sign anyone of note. The best player they signed was Tahith Chong, and Tahith Chong didn't really do anything with Manchester United. So I don't anticipate him having a good enough year to keep them in the Premier League. I hope to see them stay, but I don't think that they have the quality in the squad to do so. And then in 18th, I have Sheffield United. I think they're going down for sure. I mean, again, they didn't really sign anyone of note, just like what the previous two clubs that I mentioned did. They got rid of their best midfielder potentially in Sander Berge, who went to Burnley, and I was always high on him, but I know we didn't hit the heights that he could have potentially hit with Sheffield United, but still, you're getting rid of him to a relegation rival. I don't think that they have the depth in order to keep them in the Premier League. Cameron Archer will be up top with them, who's a solid signing, but he's not Premier League proven. I don't think that he's going to be scoring them 10 goals in the Premier League to keep them up. So, unfortunately, Wolves, Luton, and Sheffield United, I see you three all going down.
So I have two of the same that Jimmy had. Oh, Graham, do you have the statistics of who we said we're going to get relegated last year? I don't know if we did that segment, though.
No, I could not find that one when I was scrubbing through the footage. It was kind
Okay.
of just a lot of talking trash on different teams. It was kind of just like a battering of Leeds, Everton. There was a lot of hate toward Everton, and just a bunch of trash talk. And I did a long segment on Nottingham Forest, and they proved me wrong. Good for them. But yeah, no, I don't have the results for the relegation.
That's right. We can make a note of these for next year when we all come back. So, like I said, I have two of the same as Jimmy. Luton Town and Sheffield United, I have both going down. I mean, you guys know how big of a fan I was of West Ham. Now for Luton Town, I'll be doing the same thing, but I do understand that they are in a position where they're a very, very small club. They don't have nearly the same resources as the other club to go out and purchase players, nor have really a viable training grounds or facility. Having had to renovate their stadium just to play in the Premier League was pretty wild. I don't see that them staying up. Also, Sheffield United, like you said, Jimmy, just kind of lack of players, lack of talented players in the squad. And then the final team I have who's going to get relegated is Burnley. I feel like we're always saying how Burnley can escape relegation. They also will bounce between the Championship and the Premier League. And if they seem to go back and forth like every other year, and then they'll have a stint in the Premier League and then they'll go down again. So I think this could be a year that we see Burnley go down.
Yeah, I had the same three as Lewis. Luton Town, Carlton Morris is an exciting player, but I just don't think he's enough to keep them up. They're just not talented enough as a whole. As cool as it would be to see them in the Premier League, still, I don't see it happening. Same thing with Sheffield United. Just not a very talented squad in general. And Burnley, it always feels like they're hovering at the bottom of the table. It's just they got off to a terrible start. Lost to Tottenham, lost to Villa, lost to City. It's just they're not doing it for me this year. I'm not feeling Burnley. It's just a feeling, a gut feeling I've got. I think they're going down.
No, I've got a different prediction, a couple different ones from you guys, similar one. I do have Luton at the bottom in 20th. They just don't have the talent, they're very small budget, very home roots kind of club. It's awesome to see that they made it into the Premier League in general. Super cool to see that their stadium can only seat like, I don't know, 10,000 people maybe. And the fact that they're doing renovations on it before their first home game, literally while the other team's bus was pulling in, they were still working on the gates. I mean, it's a cool thing to see that Luton even made it in general. So I think this 1 year, give it to them. They'll make a lot of money for being in the Premier League in general. So it'll definitely help out the club financially. And I just think it's a really cool experience for them and their fan base. Now, moving on to 19th, I have Sheffield United. It's Sheffield. They're an up and down team usually, and I don't think much about Sheffield has changed since their recent promotion. So I really just don't think that Sheffield is just going to have the talent and or the real general facilities that they can provide to stay up in the Premier League. And I'm not going with Burnley because I think that Vincent Kompany is changing Burnley for the better. I was sick of Sean Dyche ball, like you said, barely surviving every season or going down and coming back up because Sean Dyche was their manager and he was playing a 4-4-2 in the year 2023. I know it's ridiculous. It's an outdated dinosaur system of football. And I think that Vincent Company understands that, and this Burnley team is very well drilled compared to the Sean Dyche teams. And I think that he's going to keep them up. They've run into a very tough run of games these first few games. You can't really fault Burnley for the fact that they had to play City in one of their first 4 games, and I can't fault them for that loss. So that's why I'm keeping Burnley up, and I'm saying goodbye to Everton. I am sick of this club that has just kept themselves up barely every single year, putting down poor teams like Leicester and Leeds, who actually fight for it. Everton was a big club when I was younger. It was a big club up until about 3 or 4 years ago, and now every year they're fighting a relegation battle. It's ridiculous. I think that they should be relegated out of the pure fact that they just don't deserve to be in the Premier League anymore. If you're going to be a team with that much money and just wasting it and not buying players, not doing anything with it, then you should go down. Let one of the other teams come up, because clearly they want it more than you do, and it's just getting out of hand and ridiculous for me, and that's why I think Everton needs to go down. Moving on from the relegation battle, we are going to look at a developing thing going on in the Premier League that has been very intriguing for most people, and that is, has the Premier League gone from a league with the big six, as many is referred to the top teams in the Premier League as, to a Premier League with a big seven. And when I'm talking about a big seven, I'm talking about adding Newcastle. Newcastle United have been taken over, obviously, by a Saudi consortium and have been given lots of funds to invest into the team, which they did not previously have. So with this, are we looking at a new Newcastle, pretty much?
Now, Graham, I'm not going to jump the gun yet and say, yes, they're definitely now a top 7 club. I want to see how they do in the Champions League this year, see if they could back up their Cinderella run in the Premier League from last year. And if they do have another top 4, top 5 finish, then potentially, yeah, they can be considered a top 6, top 7 club. But I'm not going to jump the gun and say that right now they are, because we've seen like Leicester before crack the top 6 multiple times. And where are they now? They're back down in the Championship. And although I do think Newcastle has a better foundation than Leicester, and they've spent money more wisely than Leicester has, bringing in the likes of Tonali and Nick Pope, Trippier, Isaac, Callum Wilson, etc., they do have a really good foundation, and I think that they're going to obviously not get relegated this year, but I'm not going to go ahead and say that they're one of the elites at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, the Leicester example was exactly what I was going to say. So I don't really have much else to add to it. I think the difference being the money that Newcastle has, they'll definitely be able to buy players to try and keep themselves afloat a bit more easily than Leicester. When you have that type of money backing you, it's hard to fail. It's hard to fail. So I think it's a little premature to say there's a new club in town. There's a top 7, because Leicester won the league, and we weren't saying that. So I don't think that we should be saying that just yet. Pump the brakes. Give it a couple of years.
I agree exactly with both of you. For me, I need to see something, right? So a deep Champions League run, perhaps a top 4 finish. And also, I don't think if that happens, like the Leicester example you guys gave, I don't think if that happens this year, at the end of this year, we can then say that they're a top 7 club. I would like to see personally it happen over the span of a few years. And it's like, okay, Newcastle is for real. This team, they spend money well. They have very good transfer market windows where they can sell and acquire players in an efficient manner that makes the team better. And it's like, okay, this team is really ready to compete year in and year out. And then at that point, a few years down the line, I'd be willing to say that, sure, they're a big 7 club. But until we get there, I'm with you boys. I'm willing to pump the brakes and say not yet.
Now, the reason I proposed this question in general is because I think, of course, you take Leicester in mind when you think about something like this, because Leicester City had the miracle run that they did have. And, you're just kind of thinking to yourself, okay, yes, they got 4th last season. Newcastle almost got relegated the year before that. They were relegated in the past few years. And you just really need to think to yourself that this team has been taken over by a source with a lot of money. No matter how people feel about how they get this money, it's a lot of money. And what they've shown is that they're not just going to throw money at their problems, and they're not just going to, buy this player and buy that player for big bids. They've done their business very smartly, getting players at very affordable prices, I feel like. And, they bring in these players that, not everyone's looking at. And it takes them to a fourth place team. Like Jimmy previously said, Nick Pope, that's a great signing for Burnley. An amazing goalkeeper, probably one of the top in the Prem now, you can say. You have Kieran Trippier from Atletico Madrid. Oh my God, he was one of the best right backs in the Premier League last year. The guy's amazing. He scores a free kick whenever he takes one. He's an insane player. And then you have Almiron from the MLS. Everyone was really looking down on that signing. Why would they take an MLS guy and really put him? And then he comes in and he really proves that he can actually play in the Premier League. And then Isak, who I think is a future star after that World Cup, the Euros. After the Euros, when he played, I think Isak proved that he can be a top striker in the Premier League for his age and just the amount of talent, raw talent that kid has. I think he can be definitely one of the best. And then you look at the biggest part, I think, is Eddie Howe. Getting him from Bournemouth was one of the best things that club could have done. Eddie Howe is an amazing manager. He proved it at Bournemouth. And then you give him the team, you give him the resources, and I think that he can prove over these next few years, like you said, obviously, not a big seven just yet, but in the next few years, he can prove that Newcastle can be the club that they used to be. Newcastle historically is a very good club with the likes of Alan Shearer and those players. So I think that Eddie Howe and all of these players will take Newcastle to that next level. Now, we're moving on from Newcastle, and we're going to look at Manchester City. But not just Manchester City. We are going to look at Louie's golden boy on Manchester City. We're looking at Erling Haaland, ladies and gentlemen. Will he do what he did again? 36 Premier League goals last season, record-breaking season. Will he do it again? I think I want Louie to start with this one because I know Louie has the most to say on him.
I mean, record breaking? Like, is he going to be breaking his own records at this point? I mean, it's hard to say. He does have 6 goals already on the year so far. It's hard to say if he will break records again, but will he be an elite, like the best goal scorer in the league player? Yeah, I do think so. When the team is entirely healthy, they're virtually unstoppable. Two of the 4 of us picked them to win the league, and the other one was an Arsenal fan. So, I assume that we are almost all in agreement that Manchester City is a pretty good team. As for record, it's hard to say if he'll break his own. I was trying to look up what players scored the most goals in their first 2 years in the Premier League, but that stat must have been too specific. I cannot find it. If any of you guys can after the show, please let me know. But I was trying to look that up because I think that is a stat he could certainly break. Being that Jimmy is saying that it is Mohamed Salah. Do you know how many goals Mohamed Salah scored in his first 2 in the Premier?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I remember his first year he broke the record for most goals scored. I think it was 33. And I think it might have been either 19 or 20 he scored in his second year. So you're looking at either 52, 53 goals over his first 2 seasons with Liverpool.
Now, I think that number is certainly plausible for Erling Haaland. That's where I'll go. That's the record I was looking at because he already had 3 more goals than Mo Salah did last season in Haaland's first year. Then he only needs to get, let's say Mohamed Salah scored 20. He only would need 17, which I think he's already like a third of the way there, and we've played 4 games. So that's the record I think that I will look at Erling Haaland to break and lead his team, like Jimmy and I think, to the promised land of winning yet another Premier League title.
Salah had 54, so he would need
54. Okay. How many would he need?
18 in this season, not including the 6 that he already has. So he needs 12. 12 to tie, 13 to break it.
Okay. In that case, yeah, I think that record falls. That's the record I'm going to go with, and I think that one falls.
He already has more Premier League hat tricks than Ronaldo. So
sorry, Jim.
It's all good. I'm not a Ronaldo guy anyway.
That's true. We're all Messi guys. That's a good point.
No, Jimmy, that wasn't a shot at you. That's just a shot at God, he makes it look too easy. I feel like he makes it look way too easy. I watch this guy play, and he gets in the worst thing about it is you look at his first few games at Manchester City, and he's gotten better over the course of that first Premier League season with just the different technicality skills of the game. He's really using both of his feet a lot more than he did, before. He was just at Borussia Dortmund. He was just a pure menace. He just ran through back lines and hammered the ball into the back of the net, a pure, poacher kind of striker. But now he's hitting goals from distance. He's doing his usual poacher thing and putting every ball in the back of the net. And that one goal he scored against Borussia Dortmund, if I believe so, the back heel, like spider kick. I mean, just stuff like that. It's just getting ridiculous. And I think he's going to go for 38, 39 this year. I mean, he might even get 40. He looks like he's going for Alan Shearer's record. And if he breaks the most goals scored in the Premier League, and takes Alan Shearer's record, I mean, what can we even say? If he doesn't go to Real Madrid, he'll do it. I think it's gonna happen. The guy's an enigma.
I mean, at this rate, he'll break it in like 7 or 8 years in the Premier League. And I think he could too. Also, he missed 3 games last year. He only played 35 matches. He plays all 38. It feels like a new record is being set. I'm just going to say it like that.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He scored 36 goals in 35 matches. He scored more than a goal a game, sat out 3 of those games. It's definitely going to be a tough thing to say whether or
good
not.
Point, Ryan. I forgot about that. It's a very good point.
Now, I'm not as gung-ho as you guys are about this. I mean, I love Haaland. I think he's fantastic, but Man City rotates so often. I mean, Julian Alvarez would start for probably 12, 13 Premier League clubs, and he's coming off the bench. So he's definitely taking minutes away from Haaland. And without Kevin De Bruyne in the lineup for the first 2 or 3 months of the season, he's not going to be getting those perfect through balls like he's used to. And no Gundogan as well to do that. No Mahrez as well to set him up either. So he's got a lot of support still, but he doesn't have the same level of support as he did a year ago. I still think he wins the Golden Boot. I still think he scores 31, maybe 32 goals, but I don't quite think that he reaches the level that he did last year, scoring 35 plus.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Only time will tell. Last year, Louie talked about how is Erling Haaland one of the best players to ever play the game when he's not even 25 years old. But I mean, that was the question you had. I put it a little more fairly. Will he break his own record this year? And only time will tell, guys, and it's going to be very interesting to see. But what I wanted to do with this last segment here is really give everyone a chance to kind of highlight what they expect from their favorite team. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit with our top predictions because, we all had our favorite team in those top predictions. And I know, Louie, you are a Borussia Dortmund fan here. So, I mean, if you want to talk Borussia Dortmund, maybe, you can spill off into it. We're never objecting to talking about the Bundesliga here. We love the Bundesliga. But you did say that your favorite Prem team was Aston Villa, so maybe you want to talk about them. But, I mean, I'm going to give you guys the floor and let you talk about your favorite teams and, who are the standout guys and kind of what you expect this year.
All right, I'll start off. And I am a Manchester United fan, as seen by my kit here. And there may be a image circulating on social media somewhere where I may or may not be wearing a Chelsea jersey. I'm just saying there may be a picture somewhere where that is happening. I'm not going to confirm or deny. I'm just going to say there's potential that it's out there. But just confirming, I'm a Manchester United fan. So for all of you back home, don't come at me with this Chelsea slander. Now, Manchester United can be slandered for a ton of other reasons. Like I mentioned earlier, their right wing spot is a complete and utter disaster with Mason Greenwood probably not putting on the Manchester United jersey ever again. Antony potentially following in his footsteps with more allegations against him. And Jadon Sancho acting like a prima donna, thinking that he's bigger than the club. And at this point, just get rid of him. I'm so over this Jadon Sancho saga. So now you're looking at Rasmus Højlund, who hasn't kicked the ball in the back of the net for the Premier League yet for Manchester United. Marcus Rashford, who's phenomenal, of course, but he's a left winger. And then Bruno Fernandes leading the line, all for Manchester United, supposedly grabbing all the goals for this team. As much as I like those three, I don't think they can carry the team super duper far. They're going to need more contributions. Mason Mount, can he potentially step up? Personally, I'm not a huge fan of his. I think he's solid, but again, we're kind of shoehorning him into the midfield alongside Bruno Fernandes. The two of them occupy the same space. They're very similar players. They're not defensive minded in the slightest. So there's always holes when the two of them are on the field. I mean, he's solid, but he's not what Manchester United needed. Amrabat's going to be a good signing, and the defense has been sluggish to start the year. And like I mentioned earlier, I think there's the injury bug has already bitten Manchester United, especially the left back position, with Luke Shaw being out, Tyrell Malacia being out as well. So we brought in Reguilon from Tottenham, who's a solid player, but for how long is he going to be a solid player for? I think overall, the team is going to be good enough to scrape into the Champions League, but they're a little bit too far away from challenging the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, and Manchester City for the Premier League title.
I'll go next here, and I'll do a little bit of both. I'll talk about the black and yellow. And I think as much as I would like to have, or as much as I would like to say that I think the black and yellow are going to win the Bundesliga finally, it's probably yet another second place finish. That's just how it is. Bayern Munich got Harry Kane, who was a huge step up of Sadio Mane, who didn't really have a good year last year. I mean, he's a very talented player, now making a lot of money in Saudi Arabia. But as for Bayern, didn't really fit in. He scored goals when needed to, but Harry Kane is an absolute amazing player. One of the best pure strikers in the world, who's is still a central striker who can do. He has everything in his tool bag. So point being that I think Bayern Munich got a lot better, and Borussia Dortmund stayed about the same. And so as a result, I think that's probably a second place finish for Dortmund. But yes, as you mentioned, Graham, I would probably say if I had to pick a Premier League team, it would be Aston Villa. And that's because I used to play as them in FIFA back in the day, back in like FIFA 12 on the Wii. So I like their colors too. They have pretty cool colors, similar to West Ham actually. But nonetheless, I think they can have a solid 8th place finish. They won't really be sniffing the top 6. I mean, they might get kind of close, but that Aston Villa team has some talent, but they're not the most. It's not the most star-studded cast. I do really like their goalkeeper, the Argentinian goalkeeper guy Emilia Martinez, whatever his first name is, Martinez. His last name is very good. He showed that in the World Cup. He also has shown in the past that he can keep Aston Villa in games with his goalkeeping ability. So if I had to guess, I would say I expect them to finish around 8th in the table.
I said it before, first place. First place. I'm expecting first place from Arsenal this season. A deep squad. Rice was a great pickup in the transfer portal. I know you guys are a little hesitant about Havertz, but I don't really care. Got a great back line. Saliba, Gabriel, Ben White, Zinchenko. You got a guy like Tomiyasu coming off the bench. Like, that's just ridiculous. That is ridiculous depth right there. Up front, Jesus, Saka, PFA Young Player of the Year right there. Tonelli. You've got Nketiah coming off the bench. Odegaard. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm very, very excited for this season. I'm expecting first place. Would I be disappointed if we got second? Maybe a little, but it wouldn't be terrible. Yeah, I've said what I've said. I think that first place is a realistic landing spot for Arsenal this season. Also, you can't expect me to go a whole episode without mentioning this. I'm sorry. Hold that L, Jimmy. 3-1. Hold that L.
Yeah, well, you better
2 goals in stoppage time. Hold that L.
You better enjoy it while you're ahead of us now, Ryan, because come later on in the season, I'll check back in with you in January to see who's.
You're waffling. You literally said Arsenal was going to finish above Man United yourself. I don't want to hear it. First place. Come on.
It's the reverse jinx. Reverse jinx. We're going to go really high with Arsenal, so when they fall down, it's going to be so much more enjoyable once they finally choke, just like they did a year ago.
See, when we come back, Jimmy is willing to be 4th place because he wants Arsenal to fall. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm willing to take one for the team, so this way Arsenal look like the fools compared to us.
I mean, you guys can dream. You can dream all you want. But Arsenal is finishing at least first place in this podcast. Not even close.
That's a hot take there, Johnston. I gotta admit, I
How
do
is it a
gotta.
hot take? You guys literally you put Arsenal in
I
first
know
place
I
in the
put
Premier
Arsenal
League. What are you
first, but
talking about?
I just think
What are
it's
you
hot
talking about? I'm saying they're gonna finish
now that you're just
above
starting to get all
Chelsea, Man
intense.
U, and Aston Villa. What are we
Steve,
on?
Now that you're starting to get intense, it's starting to become a hot take. Just because I feel like when you say it, it makes it completely different than when I
Graham
say
didn't
it.
actually believe that. He just kind of agreed with
No,
you.
he fully
Yeah,
believes it. Now that I am excited about my team,
I'm
which
gonna
is
give you.
fully,
I'm gonna give you one thing. That Declan Rice goal against Man United, his first goal in front of the home crowd, in front of the Gunners crowd. That was really that was an awesome goal. When I was watching the game, I mean I watch every
electricity.
game.
Like
That was pretty electric. You couldn't ask for anything better to an end to that game. You know, rival club, your new signing scoring a goal. Can't
I
ask
could
anything.
ask for a better ending to that game if
Oh,
Garnacho
okay.
behind.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go now with Chelsea. Um, Last year was a year I didn't really want to ever experience again. I've had a lot of, I've been blessed a lot as a Chelsea fan in my lifetime. I've been blessed with a lot of success. And I think that humbling is something that the club needed. You know, we kind of stuck in mediocrity. When mediocrity for Chelsea is like a third and fourth place finish for the last couple of years. And, you know, we were stuck in that little loop of just finishing fourth and third and fourth and third. And, you know, we hadn't won a Prem since Antonio Conte was our manager. So I think we needed that little kick. And I think the players that are at the club now want to be at the club. You have Raheem Sterling playing like Liverpool Raheem Sterling. He's really taken players on, which he didn't really do too much in his Man City days. I feel like later, especially later on in his Man City days, he kind of fell victim to Pep's system and kind of became a system role player. But I think now he's starting to get that spark back that he had. He's really taken on. He's really attacking guys. And then you have my favorite signing of the entire window, only because he just reminds me so much of my favorite player as a Chelsea fan. The next Didier Drogba, and his name is Nicholas Jackson. And Nicholas Jackson, he might not be, you know, ready just yet, but neither was Didier Drogba when he came into the Prem. I know I was only 1 year old. I don't remember it, but when I go back and watch and you look at his numbers and everything, he really wasn't, you know, that guy yet when he first came to Chelsea. He was a pretty unknownish kind of player from Marseille. And, you know, that kind of what Nicholas Jackson reminded me of. Pretty unknown, really had a decent run of form last season toward the end with Villarreal. But I think that he's perfect also because he's not wearing the number 9 kit. I know that's a thing at Chelsea. He's wearing the number 15. So I don't think we have to worry about him becoming an absolute flop like the rest of our previous number 9s. I'm not even going to go into those guys, but just, you know, and then getting back Levi Colwell from loan, he's already been promoted to the senior team for England in this last run after his amazing spell in the last U21 World Cup where England won, or was it? It might have been the Euros. I might be mistaken on that, but I mean, I think the team that we have just filled with young guys who really want to fight to become Chelsea players, who really want to play for the badge because they're not getting paid ridiculous wages like the previous Chelsea guys where our wage structure is a lot better. These are people that want to play to win trophies for Chelsea Football Club. And that is all I want. And I don't care if we finish. I do care actually. I'm not gonna even say that. That's a lie. But I mean, if we don't finish below 10th place, I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that because these are young guys and they'll need time to improve. And I think we'll start looking a lot better in these next coming games. We have a test to prove on with Bournemouth. They're a solid team. They're no pushovers, you know. They might be, you know, relegation team, you know, up for that, but the premise so I think evenly playing this year that any team can beat any team. And I think it's never really been like that, especially in our lifetimes, that the Prem has been so evenly spread. I think you have Arsenal and City, and then every other team, you know, anyone can win on any given day. But I think I'm just gonna wrap it up by saying I think I'm hoping out hope for Chelsea, but I'm not going to be too hopeful. And I will be prepared to put that Chelsea with the Fat Red X logo behind me again, like I did last year during the podcast. I have it ready whenever I need it. So, I mean, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Do you guys have any other closing remarks you want to give? Jimmy, you want to give a goodbye? Ryan, you want to say anything? Louie, because, you know, it's probably going to be a while till we see all of us here in the same place again.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on again for the second season running. Can't wait for next season to be back and see how wrong all 4 of us were when Brighton somehow wins the league or something crazy. But I wouldn't be surprised. Again, thank you guys so much. And I trust you guys to keep this podcast in good faith.
It's great to see you. Happy to have you back along with Ryan Johnston, another former member of PTV FC. Also, we have some big things in store for the future for PTV FC. We have some exciting guests coming on in the next, I believe, 3 weeks in a row. So I've been pulling some strings behind the scenes, trying to get us hooked up with some people who know footy a little bit more than we do, which would be very, very interesting to certainly say the least have them on. But yeah, when West Ham finishes 5th, and you guys are all laughing at me now, you will not be later. So that'll be interesting. You guys be all +10 or whatever, and I'll be like +3. So I'm excited for that day.
Oh, brother. That's always fun to come back.
Say to the guy who thinks Arsenal's going to win the league.
It's not a bad prediction at all. Yeah. Your co-host picked Arsenal.
He just agreed with you. He didn't believe it.
All right. Anyways, you're discrediting your own podcast here. It's fun to be back on. Always fun to see Jimmy again. I hope next year I finish a little better than 12 points. That's all I got to say.
Well, all right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for the season premiere of season 3 of PTV FC. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your co-host, Graham Marshman, here with my co-host, Louie Pasculli, with our special guests, Jimmy Bliss and Ryan Johnston. And we will see you next time.